Good stuff. Okay, gang, welcome. This is our next deep dive that we've been doing through Fitness Pilates. And today we are talking all about hip bursitis. Now, this is something that is incredibly common, not just with our participants, but actually I know more instructors that have hip bursitis than I actually do participants. I can honestly say that within sort of 24, 25 years of me teaching, there's probably only been a handful of people that have come to my classes with bursitis, whereas the amount of instructors I actually know, and I actually had bursitis quite a while ago myself, is phenomenal. It's unbelievable. And I'm going to talk about as to why that will be, and that will make a little bit more sense as we're going through. Now, I know I've got Jackie and I've got Nikki on the live with me today, and both of which have currently got bursitis. So it's going to be really interesting, and they might jump in as well, because every case, as always, with everything, like when we've done the sciatica deep dive, when we've done, arthritis, every single case is different. And as to why, hopefully will make more sense once I've been through kind of all of the information that I've got for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, first of all, what bursitis kind of is, why it happens, what is a bursa, and where they're kind of located and where they're found, why people get injured, the different diagnosis that people can have. Now, it's really important for us to understand that as instructors, we cannot diagnose. And even though I'm going to talk about the tests that are going to be used, we are still not qualified. We have to stay within our lane. We're not qualified to diagnose anything with anyone. And people need to get that clinical diagnosis. And I'm also going to talk about why some of the tests don't work, why some people are undiagnosed and some people are diagnosed with hip bursitis and actually they haven't got hip bursitis, or there's something else that's playing part and parcel of that. And then I'm going to talk about treatment and talk about, how that we can help our clients and help our participants. And obviously, if you suffer yourself, some of this stuff might be really relevant for you, and it might really, really help. With everything, like everything that we do, it's really important to understand that every case is different, and what we need to work with, rather than thinking, oh, well, one size fits all, because it never does, with what we do. We need to work with what causes pain and what makes the client or us feel more comfortable, and then work within the treatment of that. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about, what is a bursa. Essentially, it is a fluid-filled sac. And it's there to stop friction. So anywhere in the body where you've got muscles or tendons that are very, very close to the bone, you will have bursas. You will have these little fluid-filled sacs, which literally act as like a cushion, and they're cushioning to stop the friction happening. The hip, and if I just show you the location that we're talking about, because a lot of people think with the hip, they think it's here, and it's not. We need to think about the top of the hip here, and it's around this location. The hip, because of the amount of muscles that you've got around the hip have got lots of bursas. I think if you look at any kind of anatomy picture, that they actually have 9 located. However, some people have less and some people have more, okay? So everyone's different from there. The actual piriformis within the bum actually has 2 bursas. It has a piriformis bursa, and then it has a secondary one as well. So when we're thinking about this injury, this issue, and the treatment that comes with it, we can't just think of it being one. And that is where a lot of the time with certain treatments, Say, for instance, if we talk about, and I'm going to talk about cortisol injections, because cortisol injections are given as a form of treatment. Nick, am I right in thinking you've had one? Have you had, give me a thumbs up. You've had 3, bloody hell. Okay. All in there. Yeah. And some in there as well. So you've had 2 in one side and on the other side. So cortisol injections are given, but because of the amount of bursas that there are within the hip, this is where, if that cortisol injection isn't given under ultrasound, you know, like your ultrasound that, you know, if you're pregnant, they look at your tummy and everything like that, and they can actually see it, the cortisol injections need to be given with an ultrasound so that the person who's doing it can actually see which bursa is inflamed, or how many are inflamed, or how many are, you know, causing the problem. Otherwise, they're kind of going in blind, which can mean that those cortisol injections might not work. All right. So that's why they don't work for some people, because essentially they might be injecting into the wrong one. So you've got these bursas everywhere. The other location that a lot of people struggle with these bursas is actually in the shoulder here, in this part of the shoulder, and that one also gets very irritated and aggravated. We're looking at the bursitis within the hip, and the official name, and I've got to get my teeth in to say this, is trochanteric bursitis. That's one you've got to say with your teeth in for sure. These are the kind of like area that we're focusing on, probably the most common, to be fair, from there. So first of all, let's think about, why does it get injured? Why does it happen? Well, there's 2 real main kind of common causes for this. However, it's important to recognize as well that if somebody it's definitely much more common in women than in men, and it's more common in women around the ages between 40 and 60 than it is in any other ages. And also there is research out there to say there is a direct correlation between fibromyalgia, so somebody who's been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and bursitis from there. But again, those studies are being they're being listened to, they're being watched quite a lot, because there's no actual firm kind of information on that, as to say, you know, everyone with fibromyalgia will have hip bursitis from there. But there's 2 main reasons. The first one is through sudden impact, like a fall. So if somebody has fallen, say for instance you've fallen off your bike, or you've tripped over and you've fallen over onto that area, onto the hip, that can cause bursitis within that bursa. It can cause irritation, inflammation, you know, and pain from there. The second one is friction. And it sounds really crazy to think that friction is the cause, but actually friction is the reason, or prevention of friction is the reason why we have them. But we have to think that, you know, if you've got like a little cushion that's cushioning you from friction, but if you are constantly moving over that area, that cushion can get irritated, and it can get aggravated, and it can get inflamed from there. What causes the friction? Well, the first thing is poor biomechanics. So again, this is one of the reasons that I actually had hip bursitis, and I didn't realize it. I didn't know what was going on before I had my diagnosis of my leg length difference. Because if you think, if somebody's biomechanics are out, where you've got a leg length difference, where you've got one leg that's shorter than the other, and the other leg obviously is longer, and every time you walk, you're kind of almost hip hinging or swinging, then that's going to cause the area over that hip. And I'm pointing at this one because this is the one that this is my shorter leg. This is the one that I had my bursitis in. That obviously causes the area over the bursa to become again, more friction there to be constantly rubbing over it and causing pain. So anyone with a leg length difference, if that leg length difference has not been diagnosed and they are constantly kind of either sinking into the hip or leaning into the hip, that can again be a cause of poor biomechanics. Now, you can also have poor biomechanics not having a leg length difference, but just if your glute muscles are not firing properly, which may mean that then the way that the hips lie, or the way you stand, or the way you walk, or the way you run is actually causing the area with the muscles and the tendons and the ligaments over that area to rub over it. So poor biomechanics can be a huge reason as to why this bursa gets irritated and inflamed. The other reason with regards to why friction happens is tightness. And a lot of the time, the areas around it can be very, very tight. Say, for instance, like the IT band, the iliotibial band, that can be very, very tight. And essentially, again, that can cause friction as it's going over. That constant friction over time can, cause a lot of pain. This is something that, again, is common with instructors because we tend to be very tight because we don't stretch for us. We stretch for everybody else, and we don't spend enough time on actually us and looking after what we're doing. Overuse and repetition, again, is probably another huge factor why instructors get this condition, where we are not giving ourselves time to recover, time to rest, and we are constantly overusing and this constant repetitiveness over our movements. So, where we might be teaching step class constantly, that repetition. We might be doing, an activity, conditioning or body pump, constant squats, or spinning in that kind of constant position where, again, the muscles are being overused. We're not giving them time to recover and to rest. We're back in teaching our next class straight away. There is another condition, and that other condition is called snapping hip. That can also cause friction. Snapping hip is very common in anyone with hypermobility, or the demographic for snapping hip is generally your dancers, your people who tend to have a lot of movement in their pelvis. Now, the snapping hip is where the IT band, literally every time you walk, it snaps over the bursa. And of course, constantly that happening is going to cause friction. And then the bursa is going to become aggravated from there. Tracy said, it's like you're describing me. I've had this for 8 weeks now. It came out of the blue. Okay, that's important to recognize that, Tracy. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. And it's so weird. I know, Tracy, you probably weren't in when I said this, but I think most of the people who are going to log in and watch this video and do this with me, who are instructors, are actually instructors who've got hip bursitis. We actually, might not be doing this workshop, doing this deep dive for our clients. We're doing it for us because we want to know what's going to be better for us. Okay. The other thing to know is that in the bursa, or as well as them being fluid-filled sacs, there is a hell of a lot of nerve endings in each bursa. So hence why when they become inflamed or aggravated, it causes a hell of a lot of pain, not just muscular pain that we experience or joint pain, but actually nerve pain. Okay, so that's important to recognize. Let's go back to the fall, the sudden fall or impact, because this is probably the easiest to deal with. All right, so I want to deal with the easy stuff first. If you've got a client, or if you have had a sudden fall and or impact, and your bursitis has been diagnosed by a clinical professional, it will be because that bursitis has come on with either in a few hours of your accident, your fall, to possibly a day, but generally it will come in quite quick. It will come quite quick. There won't be any other issues at all. There won't be any back pain that's come from it. There won't be any other pain in any way, shape or form. It won't be like you've had back pain for weeks and then all of a sudden the bursitis kicks in. This is generally, the cause of the bursitis is the fall. And then we can actually find it that we can deal with it quite a lot easier because there's no other things that are going to be part and parcel of it. So it will just be the bursa that's being affected. So this is a lot easier to treat. What we do is we or our clients, whoever it is that's happening to, they'll just be prescribed to reduce their inflammation, reduce the load. So it might be that actually with certain clients, and I'm thinking, clients of an older generation who might have had a fall and then they've now got hip bursitis because of that, they might be prescribed to walk with a cane. Maybe if they haven't walked with a cane before. And a lot of people actually hold the cane in the wrong hand. And I think this is important to know as well for passing this information on to your clients. If they've had a fall on this hip, and this is the side that's got the bursitis, they're injured here, if they need to take that weight load off, and they may have been given prescription medication for anti-inflammatory, they want to try and take the load off that hip as much as possible. The cane needs to go in the other hand. The cane goes in the side of the leg that's okay. So that when they step forward with their bad hip and they use the cane to take the weight as well. And then they step forward with their good leg. So they step forward, cane and bad leg together, and then step forward with the good leg. So the cane goes into the side that's got the good side, not the side that's got the bad side. Yeah, and then that's how they walk. And it doesn't mean that they're going to walk with a cane forever. It's not prescribing someone to walk with a cane forever and ever, amen. But it massively, like a cane or a crutch, can massively help to reduce the load. So in this acute stage of when it's happened, they also may be prescribed massage, self-massage or dry needling. And this will actually be in the areas around, not directly on. So you do not, as much as you might feel like you want to, push into it, because obviously if that bursa is inflamed or if it is aggravated, it's going to be more aggravated and inflamed if you keep pushing on it. But instead, it will be a case of doing massage around the more fleshy area of the bottom, so around the back of the bottom, coming in around the trigger points, but not actually on it. So if they're doing a self-massage, they'll be maybe using a tennis ball or a trigger point ball around the back of the muscles. If they're having dry needling, it will again be around the back. Or if they're actually going to a therapist, they'll be prescribed massage, or they should be, around the back, around the bottom, around the lower back, all the areas before it actually gets into it. You don't actually push into that area. Dry needling, it's important to understand, dry needling can really help some people, but also it's not, like everything, it's not for everyone. So you might have clients who dry needling, it really works to reduce the inflammation in the acute stage, to reduce the pain, but then for other clients, it might not work at all. And I think that's because of the amount of bursas that are in the hip, because they might be dry needling into an area where actually that bursa is not being affected. So again, that's important to recognize. And normally once you can reduce the inflammation, or you can, reduce the load, you find that actually the pain diminishes quite quickly because there's nothing else that's causing that to happen. It's the fall. So once the inflammation's been reduced, the load's been reduced, you can recover quite quickly. So if no problem, Jackie. So if you find that you've got a client and the reason that they've got the bursitis is because of a fall, then generally, if they're, working with reducing that inflammation, reducing that load, you'll find that they will recover quite quickly. And they're kind of like the best results that can kind of come quite fast. When it comes to friction and all the reasons that can be because of friction, it's a lot more complex. And this is why I think there's so many instructors out there that have this condition for a long, long time, and it doesn't go. The other thing to be aware of is, even though I said about inflammation, and a lot of people think that inflammation and bursitis are hand in hand, there is research out there to say that it's not in all cases. Some people have bursitis, hip bursitis, and they don't have any inflammation at all. So that's where anti-inflammatories don't always work, because with some clients or with some of us, we might not have inflammation in that area. So we might find that the anti-inflammatories don't work either. So again, let's think about what causes excessive friction. What causes, the friction to cause the bursitis? Well, if you've got somebody who, like I said, the biomechanics is poor, that they are swagging their hips. Let's think of catwalk model, that kind of swaying of the hips all the time. It's actually called the Tendenberg sign. When somebody actually really sways their hips when they walk, poor biomechanics because of that causes this area to be overstretched, over and irritating the bursa. What we don't want to do is we don't want to, even though this area might feel tight, we don't want to stretch and overstretch it, because then that could aggravate it again. So if you think about it, if I push all my weight into that side and stretch out through here, that could aggravate because it's tightening around the bursa even more. So first of all, we need to look at the way either we or our clients stand. We need to look at the way we walk. We need to look and see, are the biomechanics poor? Do they need to relearn or readdress what's going on with regards to their kind of hip movement, and how stable are they through their pelvis when they move, when they walk, when they run? So you will want to look at your client and see the way they walk. Do they swag their hips? The other thing is that their knee could turn in excessively. This is when they're walking or when they're running. So if you look at me, again, we're thinking about this hip having the bursitis. If I plant my feet as I'm coming forward and my knee is coming in, that inward action of the knee causes again the outward action of the hip. And again, that area, the ligaments, like the IT band, can be very, very tight over that bursa, putting pressure onto that bursa as I'm coming in. So if I'm constantly walking or running and my knee is coming inwards, pushing that hip outwards, that's again going to cause pain, and it's not going to go away because we're not dealing and addressing with what's actually happening to that. Now, why does that happen? Well, it can be due to weaknesses in the glute. So if the glute is not strengthening properly, it can cause that knee to come in. It can also be tightness of our adductors. If the adductors are too tight, pulling the knee coming inwards. It could be the shoes someone's wearing. Maybe those shoes aren't stable enough. Maybe they're allowing too much flexibility in the feet and they're coming inwards and coming outwards. Someone is constantly pronating and allowing that knee to come inwards, causing again the tightness to happen and the pressure to happen on that bursa on that side. It could be habit, all right? People do have habits. They have habits of maybe standing on one side all the time, pushing against that. They may stand because, again, of a leg length difference. So they're standing on their shorter leg, not their longer leg, letting that longer leg relax. It could be overuse due to an excessive change in exercise. So you might have someone who's massively up their training very, very quickly, and all of a sudden the body has not adjusted to it. So they're like, whoa, the bursa is actually becoming inflamed or becoming aggravated because, again, of the tightnesses that are going on around it, the pressure that's onto it, because all of a sudden they've upped their exercise. Say, for instance, someone's doing like a lot of hill races, or someone's doing a lot of hill walking. And again, I've got another instructor who's in my VIP group who went away and did some hill walking on holiday and ended up with hip bursitis because of it. Because you go from walking around flat wherever you are to all of a sudden excessively hill walking every single day. And, you know, the bursas are like anything. If you slowly increase over time, the bursa will adapt and it will cope. Whereas if you all of a sudden do something and start something, and I know Nick said mine was from training for the triathlon, you went from maybe 0 to a hell of a lot more, all of a sudden the body's like, whoa, that bursa is going to become irritated because of it. So if you start something and you go in really hard, the bursa's not used to it and it will aggravate it as well. Not getting enough time to recover. And again, this might be for you, Nick, because you were training for your triathlon, teaching on top of that training and not giving your hips, glutes, IT band, you know, your legs time to recover, because that can also be a problem. There might be excessive tightness in IT band or TFL, your tensor fasciae lata. There might be excessive tightness in there that again is causing that friction to come over the bursa. And if that tightness is not being dealt with, if the IT band is tight, it often puts a pull and actually brings the knee again inwards. You end up with something called a runner's knee as well, where you're getting pain on the inside of the knee where it's coming inwards. And again, if that's not being dealt with, if it's not being rehabbed, if it's not being, released, then that again will be a knock-on effect to having bursitis. Ongoing back pain can also cause bursitis. Now, this is where, with friction, with the causes of bursitis and the causes of friction, it's not just like you've got bursitis and this is what you need to do, because you have to deal with what the cause is as well. So if someone's got lower back pain, and their lower back pain is because they've got weak core muscles, and they're not dealing with the weak core, so they're not strengthening their core, they're not mobilizing and keeping their back flexible as well as their hips, they're not training their glutes, then they could result in having hip bursitis as well. Now there you've got two problems. You need to then deal with, obviously, this weak core, because that might actually reduce the pain in the bursitis straight away. So you might find that as soon as you actually work on strengthening the core and the flexibility of the back, that might actually reduce the bursitis straight away. Or you could work on the core, strengthen those core muscles, strengthen the glutes, strengthen the back, mobilize everything, as well as then treat the bursitis, and the two will work hand in hand. But 9 times out of 10, unless it's because of a fall, there'll be another reason as to why someone has got bursitis, which needs to be dealt with. You need to find out what the cause is, because if you don't know what the cause is, essentially you might reduce the pain. So say, for instance, you might have a cortisol injection like Nick, you might reduce the pain for a set period of time, but because the cause hasn't been dealt with, it will come back and it will keep coming back from there. So just kind of being aware of that. Like I said, that, you know, you may have other conditions that cause the area to be too tight, whether that be within the IT band, the lower back, TFL, which will then again irritate that bursa. The snapping hip, like I said, more common with hypermobility, more common with dancers. They're more of your demographic that are going to have that snapping hip. And again, that IT band flicking over continuously will irritate it. So the snapping hip needs to be dealt with again first. And again, they're going to need to go to physio, or they're going to need to go to an osteopath, and they're going to need to be given specific exercises that are going to help with regards to what's happening there. Again, maybe with their hypermobility and their pelvis, or, you know, to reduce that snapping hip movement. So what I'm going to ask you, and if you struggle with bursitis, or if you've got clients with bursitis, the first thing that we want to look at is bad habits. Look at bad habits. Look at whether or not we stand like this on that one leg. Do we hang out of the hip? When you, you know, walk, are you swagging your hips from side to side? Do you have a tendency to put all of your weight on one side? Now, this is why it's quite common as well with new mums, because they're like this. They're holding their little ones on one side, and all of a sudden, this area is getting very aggravated around that bursa over time because of repetition, because of overuse. So let's look at bad habits. The next thing that can cause, you know, a lot of issues with regards to bad habits is constantly sitting with your legs crossed. So sitting with those legs crossed, again, that's stretching that area. It's again, that stretching position can cause the bursa to be aggravated, especially if that bursa is inflamed. So when you sit, you need to sit straight with your feet connected with the floor. You need to sit, if you're sitting on the floor, legs straight, not crossed, not crossed. Yeah, we're not going to stand on one leg. We're not going to hang out on that hip. We're going to have equal distribution. So we're going to try to re-educate our brain, or our client's brain, to think about alignment and posture and habit. And that's the first thing that you need to deal with. So you need to really think about, if it's you and you're suffering, or if it's a client and they're suffering, let's focus on the bad habits. Let's absolutely work on the things that we can control first. Control the controllables. We always talk about that. So that's the first thing that we want to do. Then you need to get a proper diagnosis as to whether or not this is bursitis. Is it caused by other reasons, and what are those causes? So there are tests out there. Some of the tests are not accurate, and I'm going to explain as to why they're not accurate. The pain might not be specific to bursitis. It's easily confused with other things, because with bursitis, you can actually just get pain in the located area on the side of the hip. But if it's excessive, that pain can also go down the leg, and that pain can also come round the back. Now, that pain could also be just general lower back pain. It could be somebody with just general lower back pain. It could also be somebody with glute med tendinopathy. Again, that's a result of that. So, you've got two things now where it could be glute medial tendinopathy. It could be bursitis. It could also be a glute tear because we get pain in the same areas. The reason is that because where you've got your pain here in the outside of the hip, with glute med tendinopathy, the tendon comes in and goes in to that part, the same location, exactly the same place as the bursitis. And this is where someone with bursitis can end up with, as well as glute med tendinopathy, and vice versa. You might have glute med tendinopathy and bursitis together. So sometimes the diagnosis isn't as accurate as it needs to be. What the big difference is with regards to these things, so a glute tear, glute med tendinopathy, lower back pain, and bursitis, is the big difference is how the pain develops and how it behaves over 24 hours, okay? So for instance, if you can do a lot of weight-bearing exercise and it doesn't cause you any more pain, it's probably not hip bursitis, because bursitis, the Bursa, doesn't like to stand for long periods of time. So essentially, if you can stand for long periods of time and weight bear or walk for long periods of time, then essentially it's probably not bursitis, it's probably something else. If stretching makes it worse, or sitting with your legs crossed, then it probably is, or there probably is some hip bursitis in there as well, okay? But just by doing a test where they push into it and say, yeah, it hurts there, it hurts when you do that, that's not good enough. So you need to actually get somebody to do some proper tests to find out what's going on. Pushing isn't accurate. More accurate tests is the Stalk Test. So this is where you would see if a client could stand on one leg without pain getting worse in that area. If they can, it's probably not bursitis. There's probably other things going on. If they can't, then there's probably definitely bursitis and possibly other things going on as well, which is causing the bursitis. The other thing is, so not only another test that you can do, and I'm going to use the chair for this one, is if you contract the external rotators like against a force. So external rotating and then against a force. And if you, again, develop pain, feel pain getting worse in there, then that also potentially could be hip bursitis. The annoying thing is, with anything to do with injuries, that also highlights glute med tendinopathy. So the two kind of almost are like part and parcel here. So another way that you can test for glute med tendinopathy is to do this external rotating and have against a resistance from there. So what you need to do with a client is get them to get a clinical diagnosis as to what the cause is and take into effect, marry up the other factors with regards to the condition. How did it start? What happened? Did the client have back pain for a certain period of time and then the bursitis come in? Did they have knee pain, or did they have problems with regards to their glutes, and then the bursitis came in? Did they have very tight IT bands that weren't stripped properly, that weren't, acted on, and then the bursitis came in? So again, what are the other factors that are going to marry it up? We can't diagnose it when, like I said earlier, when that's not within what we can do. We can give advice and we can tell the client, these are the things that you need to be getting somebody to do with you. You can, you need to be getting a clinical diagnosis to find out as to what's going on. But remember what I said right at the start of this, there is more than just one bursa in the hip. You've got at least 9 in there. So it might be that there's more than one that's aggravated, more than one that's inflamed. So they've got to be kind of looked at and dealt with in a bit more detail there. Bursitis can cause other conditions and vice versa. Apparently, research shows that 35% of people who have glute medial tendinopathy also have bursitis. So, it can be a knock-on effect with regards to other conditions as well, which have to be taken into account. Please let me know, gang, if there's any questions or if I'm moving too quickly or if anything doesn't make sense. Please let me know, because I know I'm giving you a lot of information here. Does this all make sense? Are you all okay? Yeah, thanks, Nikki. So an excellent physio will test for the symptoms. They will test what makes it better and what makes it worse, and then treat around those. And essentially, the treatment that they give will be the information that your client gives you as to what you can and can't do with them. Because with some clients, they need to do strength work. And with other clients, they don't. They need to actually work on their biomechanics, and they might need to work on their posture. Then, you might have one client like me with a leg length difference, and until that leg length difference is dealt with, the bursitis is not going to go. It's never going to go. And then as soon as you have orthotics in your shoes, or, you've got your leg length difference being acted upon, all of a sudden the bursitis goes. And that's what happened with me. As soon as I've got my insoles in my shoes, the first couple of weeks were excruciatingly painful while my body was getting used to it. But all of a sudden, my biomechanics was changing, and you could feel that actually, I'm walking differently now, I'm moving differently now, I'm much more happier. The problem we have is that we spend most of our time barefoot when we're fitness Pilates instructors. So actually, with somebody like me, it would be much more beneficial to be wearing my trainers. The problem is I hate wearing my trainers. I like being barefoot, but it's that knock-on effect. You need to kind of think about you working on those other things, those other factors first. Is it a biomechanical issue? And sometimes, with a client, it doesn't matter really whether or not they've been given a specific label. I think we need to be a bit more cleverer than that. We need to listen to what makes it better and what makes it worse. So if somebody, hasn't been able to get that diagnosis, but they still want to work with you, then you as the instructor can be more cleverer than that. And you can think, right, okay, well, let's find out what makes it better. Let's find out what makes it worse. Let's work around that. Let's see how the body responds over 24 hours, and then make our judgments and our progressions to what we do from there. Okay. There's not one rule, like I said right at the start, not one size that fits all for everyone with regards to, help and support and treatment and advice, because everyone's different and the causes will be different. So let's think now. I've spoken for about an hour about the theory, and now let's think now with regards to exercise, or with regards to fitness Pilates, and kind of the do's and the don'ts that we can do with regards to our client. So first of all, in an ideal world, we'd know what the cause is. And if you can't fix the cause, you might not be able to fix the bursitis. And it might be that client's got to work with other people to help to fix the cause. Like with me, I needed to work with a podiatrist to be able to actually fix the cause. So thinking about, what we can do in order to move our clients forward. Nikki said, I was told to improve my glute max and my knee stability. So that's really interesting, Nikki. You probably were one of those people that when you walk and when you run, I'm guessing your knee was coming inwards. And that was a result of the fact that your glute wasn't firing properly and your knee wasn't strong and stable. So absolutely, if we know that that's the issue, then there's definitely things that we can do in order to be able to help and support our client. Obviously, if it's biomechanics, like with Nikki's case, we need to think about changing any bad habits. So changing if someone stands more on one side than they do on the other, if someone's sitting cross-legged all the time, changing those things. And then thinking about strengthening up, like Nikki said, with regards to glute max and knee stability. Now we might think, okay, well, glute max, we need to fire up the glutes, we need to work the glutes, and we might be thinking, okay, lots and lots of them kickbacks, or we might be thinking, lots of clamshell, and a lot of this stuff. I've looked with various physios on what they prescribe, and some they do prescribe, clamshells, and they do prescribe single leg glute work and things like that. And that's absolutely fine. If that's what they've been prescribed by their professional, then obviously you're going to go with it. But let me just give you a bit more information. With a clamshell, say for instance, this is my bursitis area. If I'm doing the clamshell, as I'm coming through, that's actually tightening that area around the bursa, and that could cause more pain. That could cause more discomfort, yeah? Likewise, if I was doing, sort of like a fire hydrant, again, that might cause more discomfort. And what might be more beneficial, if it's a biomechanical problem and essentially they need to create stability, whether that be in the knee or whether that be in the hips, would be things like glute bridges, much more beneficial, or maybe even a leg press in the gym, both legs together, where the knees can stay stable, the pelvis can stay stable, and they're taking the load through both areas, and you're still firing up through the glutes. Or even better, I'm just going to make sure my door's locked for this one, would be an isometric hold. So you would work and find out the range of movement that doesn't cause pain, and then just hold an isometric position. So you're here and you're working and firing up through that area to help with regards to the biomechanics. So that might be much more beneficial than somebody, doing single-sided out-of-thigh lifts or clamshells or anything like that. It might be like with Nikki, she was told because of her triathlon, it might be that, did you change your training too fast? And if you did change the training too fast, then essentially you might need to look at that training schedule and things might need to be adjusted. So you might need to go back, and start to think about your training and your periodization and things like that, and just gradually ease in to allow the body to adjust. Like I said, definitely think about bad habits. Do you stand on both feet? Let's get our clients to really go back to basics. with regards to our perfect Pilates posture, to really distribute that weight evenly between our right and our left side, not do too much work standing on one side, to actually keep it equal. And definitely things like a wall sit or an isometric hold might be much more beneficial than actually lifting and lowering in like a squat, where essentially you're still kind of rubbing over that bursa, which again might cause problems. Most physios and osteos won't actually give any strength exercises until the bursa has calmed down. So until, if there's inflammation that's been reduced, or the load has been taken off. And then once that bursa has kind of calmed down, then you can bring in strength exercises. So again, I would be working with a client and making sure they're working with a physio, so that the physio has given them advice as to when they can bring in their strength exercises. I wouldn't be doing any stretch work with that client for a long time until that, again, bursa has calmed down. Because if you think about it, certain stretches, like, again, if this is my bad side, if I pull that knee across, I'm actually stretching over the bursa and pushing and tightening that area, which again can cause a lot more pain. Likewise, if I'm here and again kind of coming up onto a diagonal, this position isn't so bad, probably doesn't cause as much discomfort in that area. But you might be saying to me, but Kelly, what if it's because of tightness? If they've been told that they're tight and you're telling me not to stretch, what do we do? Well, then this is where you need to think about, they might need, excuse me, to work a little bit more of a holistic approach when it comes to reducing the tension. And that might need to come from massage, and it might need to come from, again, dry needling, or it might need to come from working maybe with a trigger point ball or a tennis ball. And I'm going to show you now what you can do. So if the bursitis is caused by tightness, or it seems to be caused by tightness, then, and if it's tightness, around into the glutes, or again around IT band, first of all, start standing with the client. And again, what you want to do is you want to work on the fleshy parts, to work on the trigger points, rather than actually pushing onto that very, very tender area. So we'd go against the wall, and we'd go with the ball in the fleshy part of the bottom. So I'm not actually on my bursa, and instead I'm on kind of the areas around it. Now, the way you stand is important. What we want to do is we want to almost take the weight off that leg at the back. This is the side that's got the bursitis. And instead, the leg on the front is the one that's taking the load. So I can completely control how much weight I'm putting on here, and I can slowly move around those big fleshy muscles at the bottom. I'm not going to go onto the bursa at all. I'm going to come round the back, round the sides. Again, I can adjust to move and work in here. And that's a much safer position to be in, rather than be down on the floor. And as well, it's self-myofascial release, it's self-massage. So the client is completely in control of how much pressure they put on. They're not going against gravity, so it's not going to be as hard for them. And it might mean that they just need to work on, doing a bit of self-massage on the bottom, around the lower back, never going across the vertebrae though, against the wall to help to aid and support that and make that feel better. With regards to if it's the IT band, now you could be working with a foam roller. Again, you could be working with a massage therapist, or in a seated position, again, massaging down the IT band with a trigger point ball, but not going up onto the Bursa. So just working down and through, and just massaging that IT band to help to, again, release the tightness there. Again, they might need dry needling, if that might work for them. More so than coming on, because coming onto that side could be incredibly painful. So doing it from a seated position and actually doing a bit of self-massage with trigger point balls, with a tennis ball, with a golf ball, whatever you've got there, maybe possibly with a foam roller. If you're going to do the foam roller, rather than laying on the side, which is going to be incredibly uncomfortable, going against the wall. And again, it comes from the leg on the outside being the leg that's strong and stable, the leg inside, no weight onto it or hardly any weight onto it, and then allowing that leg to roll through so that you can use your foam roller there as well to be beneficial. So you would find the pain-free range and you would work with regards to that, okay? Anything that you do with your clients or you do with yourself, notice how it reacts within 24 hours and then go from there. If it doesn't cause any additional pain or it doesn't cause a flare-up and there's no kind of issue with regards to it, then you know that you can keep working in that realm. If it does, then you know you need to pull it back a little bit and make sure that they're not moving too much too soon. The other things that you can do is, again, to help to strengthen these areas around the hip and around the glutes. So like I said, glute bridge, really, really good, really effective. Any leg press that you can do if you're in the gym, again, leg press, double leg, making sure that's nice and strong. Isometric holds where you can be in that fixed position against like a wall sit and working to that realm. And then if you did want to do single-sided stuff, avoid laying on the side with the bursitis. It's going to be incredibly uncomfortable for somebody to lay on their side. So advice that you can give them when they're sleeping would be don't sleep on that side. Also, don't sleep on the other side, because if you imagine me laying in bed or laying on this side, if I'm laying like this, all night that's getting stretched over the bursa, and again, that can be painful. So they're going to need a cushion in between their knees in there, or ideally laying on their back or laying on their front. If you do want to do single-sided stuff with regards to strength work for these areas, say for instance, like Nikki needs to do some stability for the knee, and she also needs to do some glute max work. Coming up, again, an isometric hold, just squeezing and engaging the muscles into the bottom, and again, staying nice and strong and stable into the knee. So isometric, just hold. You could then take a little pulse and lift and lower. And again, that could be done with a bent knee and lift and lower from there. We can enhance core stability by lifting up the opposite arm as well. The other things that we could do to help with regards to strengthening through the muscles around it, and especially if it's because of knee instability, might need to come from lifting and lowering the leg. So option would be, again, to go either from here, and you're going to lift that leg up and down, only in line with the other leg. So not too high, clenching through the thigh, working those muscles to help, again, stabilize here. Or coming up to the glute bridge, and again, lifting and lowering the stability of the pelvis, the glute engagement, and stability of the knee. It's actually the knee that stays on the floor that's having to stabilize. So that could be a progression. Seated. So again, if this is my bad side, lifting and lowering the leg. Again, tightening up through the muscles around the thigh, but again, not aggravating and not overstretching into that side. So actually working here instead, lifting and lowering. And of course, that could be done standing on the good leg, and then here with this, the bad side, either lifting and lowering up through the knee, or with straight leg, lifting and lowering. But ideally, you want to work isometric first, and you want to work with those feet planted onto the floor. So wall sits, your glute bridge with both feet down onto the floor, or any leg press action, again, is going to be beneficial to help to strengthen up those areas. Try to avoid laying on the side. It's going to be really uncomfortable anyway. They're not going to be able to do it. And just be mindful of the amount of outer thigh or clamshell stuff. If you are prescribing this for clients, there could be a potential that it could be made worse. So it could actually cause more discomfort with clients, bringing them into that kind of clamshell position. With regards to the stretches, try to avoid stretches at all costs while they are in their acute stage, while that bursitis is still really painful, and instead work with things like the massage, the trigger point balls against the wall, work with the dry needling if you want to, work with, again, maybe possibly a foam roller against the wall for the IT band, or actually go and get if it's you, or get your client to get a massage. But the massage doesn't want to be on the actual bursa. It wants to be around it instead, okay? And I mean, in the worst case scenarios, it would be cortisol injections. But again, if someone's having a cortisol injection, they can be really beneficial, but they need to be done with ultrasound, so they know that they're actually getting that injection in that area of the bursa, which is causing the pain and the inflammation or the irritation. And to understand that your cortisol injections, if you are not actually dealing with the cause as to why, the bursa has become, it's become bursitis, then it will come back. So we need to think about addressing the habits, addressing the posture, addressing the strength in those areas, addressing the tightness and the stability, and they will all be beneficial. Now, with that, obviously, all of your fitness Pilates moves that you can do to help to strengthen the core and to mobilize through the back are also going to be beneficial. So things like your legs slide, whether that be in contact with the floor or up at tabletop, your tap downs. Be mindful of knee drop, because again, that movement essentially could aggravate it. So again, you need to ask and find out, does that make it worse? Does it make it better from here? And also your shoulder bridge, the mobility of the spine, as well as your glute strength work that can come up from the top, from here. They might find that the rollbacks actually cause more discomfort. And it'd be interesting to know, Nikki and Tracy, do rollbacks cause you more discomfort because of, again, this hip position? So if it does, then take away that roll and bring them back to work the abdominals with the ball instead. And it might be that you've got to have those legs extended rather than here, again, where that might be stretched and that might feel uncomfortable. So instead, opening up through here and working into that position. Your Superman, again, think about maybe just holding isometrically and keeping it quite straight and linear rather than opening out to the sides, because again, that opening up, again, might be putting that stretch onto the bursa, which might cause the discomfort and aggravation in that way. But again, you can think about using thread like a needle to help to mobilize the back, which again would be beneficial to keep that area to be released, but the legs staying in a nice, strong, fixed position. And then working through swimming, again, helping to fire up the glutes. You could do your VW, your square, swan dive, again, to help to fire up through the glutes as well, just to make sure that, you know, those areas are staying nice and strong. Swim legs. Avoid your side lying. Avoid it laying on the side that's troubled, but also possibly laying on the other side as well, especially in the acute stage, in that stage where it might feel really, really uncomfortable. And instead, it might be that you need to bring them into a better position. Now, saying that, you might find like a side plank actually really helps with regards to hip stability. So lifting that hip away from the floor and staying in a side plank position, again, might be much more comfortable. To get into it though, you might need to change it slightly. So you might need to go from kneeling and put the hand down and then come from here and then lifting away. Or you might need to come again from a kneeling position here, come down with the elbow and then onto the side, rather than laying onto that side first of all. Your plank positions, again, will be absolutely fine, again, to help to strengthen the glutes, strengthen through our core section, and keeping that area, again, quite linear. Try to avoid lots of squats, because again, that could aggravate in those initial stages. And just thinking about what exercises make it feel better and what exercises make it feel worse. Okie dokie. So Tracy said, will it show up on an MRI? Possibly, Tracy. Are you having an MRI done? Are you going to get an MRI done? Yeah. If they've told you that it will, generally it will actually show up better on an ultrasound, to be honest. An ultrasound will show it. So if you have got to pay for the MRI, maybe opt for an ultrasound first. It's a lot cheaper. You might find that's better. The roll up for you, definitely, yeah, it aggravates in there. Nikki said it's okay with straight legs for her, but not with bent knees. It's that bent knee action that again puts that pull on there. Nikki said, I'm okay if I do clam like a chair position, and yes, side plank is good. So you clam in your chair position, Nikki, do you mean where you're actually seated and then take it out? Oh, you're in that position and lift in. Okay, coming up from there. Okie dokie. And that's the thing. I mean, everyone is different. I know Jackie's not on the live anymore, but Jackie was messaging me yesterday because she knew she was doing the deep dive, and she's had lots and lots of issues with regards to her bursitis, and there's been lots of things that were being problematic for Jackie, and she said she doesn't mind me sharing that information with everyone. So I'm just going to go back and let you know. So what she's had with regards to her bursitis is she's never ever been told that she's got one leg longer than the other or anything like that. She found that her piriformis wasn't engaging, and also her hip flexor on her left side wasn't working properly. Her sacral area was stuck. I was to work with a prickly ball, given the ball to work to do at the back. Back of the pelvis, either side of the sacrum, outer thigh, hip flexors as homework, which is all really good. That's absolutely fine. She was getting a burning sensation down the outer leg and the front of her ankle when she used to get a flare up, and that was because of the nerve. Like I said earlier, the bursas have got nerves in them. So that's kind of where hers was kind of coming up from there. She couldn't flex her foot, and she just felt like her foot was falling inwards and she was tripping over it all the time. Sitting with the left leg crossed over the right was a definite no-no. So like I said, no leg crosses. Posterior tilting of the pelvis is painful too around that left side, and the inflammation. She's literally just, again, the kind of doctors that she was dealing with was very basic information, ice, ibuprofen, painkillers from there. So she's kind of been looking at what else she could be given and different information. Her locum doctor wanted to give her a cortisol injection, but she wanted to try everything else before she got to that stage. I think it's important, like just reflecting on obviously Jackie's situation. I think what Jackie really needs to do, again, like I said, is work on kind of maybe more isometric positions, isometric holds, more double leg stuff. Be aware of her bad habits, be aware of any postural kind of defects, work on those postural realignments for her and see if that can make a big difference. One of the biggest things as well, and I know we love our activation bands, but one of the biggest things for like Jackie is the activation band really, really aggravates her hip bursitis. To be mindful of that if you are teaching classes with anyone with hip bursitis, I would not use the activation band at all, simply because it massively tightens the IT band. And as much as it's amazing for the glutes, if your glute med tendinopathy, if there is glute med tendinopathy, because of the activation band, it really, really flares up round glute med, glute minimal. It really works around those areas. And if somebody has got glute med tendinopathy, which I think may potentially be Jackie as well, then it's going to massively aggravate. So just again, be mindful of working with that. Tracy said, I wake up every morning feeling like a spring on my left. I can't put my heel down, and I feel I need to grow tall and ease her heel onto the floor. Like Jackie, I get pain down the leg, but in the calf, and it's burning. Sciatica completely ruled out, like a spring coil. I think, again, if it's you, and obviously this is your money maker, this is your body, this is what you do, obviously taking into account everything that I've said, everything I've been through, if you are still not getting any response and not getting any, it's not getting any better, then you definitely need to go and seek maybe a second opinion, more professional advice with regards to you and what's going on in your body, because there could be underlying issues, like I've said, other causes which are causing your bursitis. And if those issues are not being rectified, if those issues are not being dealt with, your bursitis isn't going to get any better. So it's going to need to be coming from the perspective of having a look at some other stuff going on. Is there glute med tendinopathy in there? You know, is there a leg length difference going on in there? Good stuff. No problem. Yeah, Tracy, she said, I'm with a physio at the moment. That's awesome. You know, is there any issues with regards to the IT band? Is there lower back issues going on that's causing it? These things need to be looked at first. We definitely need to look at habits. We need to look at biomechanics. You know, when you're walking, when you're running, video yourself and look and see, you know, is that knee coming inwards? Is the hip swaying out? Are you standing more on one leg than you are on the other? Can these things be rectified? Can you look at your biomechanics of the body to really address that? Maybe you need to train your trainers. Maybe you need to have insoles in those trainers. And that hopefully, you know, once you put all of these things in place, it's going to help you feel better. If you don't, then again, you know, you need to be seeking more medical advice, seeking more professional help to help you, because you don't want to feel like this. This is stopping you from working. It's stopping you from moving. It's stopping you from doing all the stuff that you want to do, all of your exercises. Definitely avoid the stuff that I've said. Avoid lying on the side. Avoid, you know, overstretching in that area, bringing the leg across. Think about, you know, the way that you sit. Think about the way that you stand, and try to work on with the spiky ball in the area around it rather than actually on it, to try and get some relief work. Maybe dry needling will work for you. There has been some research that has said that some people have had better benefits with dry needling than they have with the cortisol injections. However, I would probably want to see that those tests done a few more times before I made that gospel. But everyone's different. So if you haven't tried dry needling yet, maybe try that. See if that's going to be beneficial. We can only do what we can do. If it's for our clients, we can only help and support them by putting them in better positions, by helping to strengthen areas around it if they need to be strengthened, and avoid the ones that are going to maybe cause the issues, like things like the clamps, side leg lying, side leg rotations. We can avoid those. I really hope, gang, that you found that beneficial. I know it's been a lot of information to take on and to talk about. I wanted to give you as much information as I possibly could on what the Bursa is, where they lie, the fact that there's not just one, that there is many, you know, the treatment that's involved, the diagnosis that's involved, the tests that are involved, why people get it and how it can be different from person to person. And then really because we've got all of that information, we can then help our clients, hopefully, with being able to feel better and move better. But remember, always, we're not there to diagnose anything. And we can't claim we're going to fix them either. Because with bursitis, like I said, if there's other reasons why it's happening, and essentially those reasons are not being addressed, those reasons are not being rectified, then the bursitis is not going to go. So don't ever say, oh, Pilates will fix you, fitness Pilates will fix you, because it might not. So just remember to be very, very careful with regards to what we say and what we claim. Yeah, Nikki, it would. Your Z position. Does it cause you pain, Nikki, when you do it? That position, yeah. If it does, I would definitely avoid it. The reason why is because, again, say for instance, it's this side, which is my bad side. If I'm here, again, that position, if the ligaments and the tendon and the muscle is all pushing on the bursa, and if I'm here, it's being overstretched. So for a lot of people, the Z position, the mermaid position, again, is a no-no. Think linear, think straight, think double as much as possible. Legs straight out in front, or in a linear plank position, or a linear glute bridge position, that kind of thing. Linear is going to be much more beneficial rather than this, rather than this, rather than this, rather than this, rather than this. Think about keeping it linear. And like I said, if it is because of tightness, work on that tightness being released in the muscle, coming from more kind of trigger point work, but do not push into it. Don't, as hard as that sounds, because I know whenever we've got something wrong with us, we tend to push into it, push into that area. Please, please, please don't get your clients to do that, or don't do that yourself. Don't push into it. Don't spiky ball into it, trigger point into it, that kind of area. Go around. Work from the back around to the side, but not actually over. I can't emphasize that enough, because obviously we don't want you to hurt yourself even more, to be, to have more of that irritation within the bursa. We want that to be reduced. Nick said, I should have worked out the problem rather than just going for injections. The thing is though, Nick, we just don't know, do we? And with us as instructors, we are probably the world's worst, because we want to be back up and running like that. So whatever we can do, quick fix, do it. Let's go for it. Whatever you can give me now, if you can give me a magic bean, I'll take it, so that I'm okay to crack on and move on from this. And unfortunately, we don't often practice what we preach. Like I said, very common with instructors because of overuse, because of tightness, because of lack of recovery. We don't give ourselves enough time to rest, to recover from there. And because of postural defects, we overwork on one side, we underwork on the other. We stand on one leg more than we do on the other side. We might stretch one side and we don't stretch the other, because we're walking around and correcting everybody else. So we really need to think about ourselves for a change. We need to bring it back and absolutely focus on a little bit of self-care and go back to basics with regards to what we're doing. But I really hope that's been helpful. I hope that's been beneficial. I know we didn't sort of have a little break in between the kind of theory and the practical side of things today. I just kind of plowed straight in. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know if there's anything else you want me to ask about, or anything else you want me to cover. I know there's only a few of us on the live, today. But if there is anything else that you want to ask about, let me know. Oh, no problem, Nick. That's absolutely my pleasure. Oh, thanks so much, Tracy. Thank you. Thanks, Monica. Oh, bless you. Don't self-diagnose yourself, though, Monica. Don't do that. Monica's like, I'm sure I've got hips. I'm certain I've got this now. Don't do that. Don't Google anything either. You know, you'll end up giving yourself a self-diagnosis for something horrendous. Now, just to let you know, everyone that's watching this, whether you watch it on catch up, whether you are watching this live, next Thursday from 11:30 till 3:30, Rachel and I are delivering the small equipment certification. So this is a certification which you'll now be qualified with small equipment, and it's going to be, you know, again, massively in depth, lots and lots of information with working with small equipment, and not just the conventional balls and bands, but actually, you know, stepping a little bit further out into there, revamping what you're doing, hopefully refreshing your ideas, your content, your information that you're giving your clients, correct placements of small equipment, how to work with them effectively, who to use them with, who not to use them with, because there's certain clientele that don't appreciate using, for instance, like the mini ball underneath the bottom, as to why they don't. We're going to give you all of that information as well, and you're going to be properly, you know, certificated to say that, you know, you are qualified with use of small equipment from there. Tracy, you know what? I was exactly the same. I believed I needed a hip replacement. I was absolutely, you know, certain that I did, to the stage where I actually went and got an X-ray on my hip because I believed I needed a hip replacement. And they don't normally do X-rays on the hip, especially in women. And I think, I mean, I can't remember how old I was now, but I was young, and obviously I'd not had any children, and they were very, very worried about doing it. But I was adamant that I needed this X-ray to see if I needed a hip replacement. What I should have done is had an ultrasound so that they could have seen that there was hip bursitis there, and that hip bursitis was caused by my leg length difference. But again, I didn't know I'd got a leg length difference there. So if you have got bursitis and you haven't been checked for a leg length difference, put that as top of your list as well. Get that checked out, because it might just be as simple as recorrecting your pelvis so that your biomechanics recorrect, your body recorrects itself, and the bursitis may then go or feel a hell of a lot better. Oh, good, Tracy. I'm glad you're joining us next Thursday. So yes, next Thursday we have got the small equipment certification. So if you want to join us for that, make sure you book onto it. We're going to have a fully equipped manual that will come with that, as well as all the information. And Rachel and I are going to team teach it like we do, where it will be one of us teaching and then swapping over from there. And if you want any other information, let me know. The next deep dive that I'm doing in October is hypermobility, hypomobility. So these all kind of knock onto each other, because obviously I was saying that the snapped hip is very, very common with anyone with hypermobility. So I'm going to be going through hypo and hypermobility for our next deep dive. Cool. So if there's no other questions, that's all my information to give. They're all my exercises. They're all my kind of do's and don'ts. I hope you found that beneficial. Please, like I said, let me know if there's any questions, anything else that you want or you need from us. You know, we're only on the end of an email or a message, and we're always here to help. So hopefully that's helped you, or helped your clients as well. Thanks so much, gang. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.